Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, so I want you to picture this scene. You are one of the most powerful bankers in Gilded Age America. I mean, men practically bow when you enter a room, right? Your bank's vault holds the wealth of an entire empire. And yet, sitting right across from you in this velvet-draped parlor is a woman who, honestly, makes you feel completely ordinary. She doesn't raise her voice, she just calmly slides a folded piece of paper across the mahogany table, and it bears a signature that literally commands the global economy. Andrew Carnegie. She just looks at you with this absolutely chilling serenity.
And then she says, "When my father passes, you will be paid in full." It's a chillingly calm guarantee. But well, there's one catastrophic problem here. The woman sitting before you, delivering this line with perfect poise, yeah, she's not a billionaire heiress. She's actually an ex-convict operating a massive fraud. And by the time her illusion finally shatters, she's going to bring down entire financial institutions and completely stun a nation.
Okay, let's dive into this, because you have to wonder, how exactly did one woman, armed with little more than a fabricated story and sheer, unbelievable audacity, manage to fool the absolute elite of the global financial capitals? You know, history loves to remember its male criminal masterminds, but today we are unpacking a true psychological thriller about the most dangerous financial predator in Gilded Age America, Cassie Chadwick. To understand the con, though, we first really need to understand the mastermind behind the veil.
Section 1. Making of a Mastermind.
So she was born Elizabeth Bigley in 1857 in a pretty modest rural pocket of Ontario, the daughter of a railway worker. But Elizabeth possessed this restless mind and, quite frankly, a total contempt for the boundaries of her working-class upbringing. She experimented with small-time forgeries early on. And by 1889, well, her luck ran out. She was convicted of forgery in Ohio and sentenced to nearly a decade in the penitentiary. Now, most people emerge from prison broken, but Elizabeth, she actually emerged as a graduate.
And this brings us to the absolute crucial lesson she took away from her time behind bars. Petty scams are for amateurs. She realized that if you truly want power and, untouchable social immunity, you do not steal from the working class. You target the absolute top of the financial food chain, and you do it with a smile.
Section 2. Forging the Carnegie Ghost.
Following her release, she moved to Cleveland, completely reinvented herself as Cassie, and married a wealthy, highly respected physician named Dr. Leroy S. Chadwick. And then she quickly sent her new husband off on an extended European vacation, basically just to keep him out of the way. Now, with an empty mansion and a respectable name, she needed a father figure of mythical proportions to pull off her masterpiece. Enter Andrew Carnegie. During the Gilded Age, Carnegie was the undisputed titan of American steel. I mean, he was literally one of the richest men on earth, and his name alone unlocked immense global wealth and unquestioned trust. He was, without a doubt, the perfect weapon.
Her setup in 1897 was just brilliant. Cassie hired a prominent Ohio lawyer as a pawn. She took him to New York, left him waiting in a carriage outside Andrew Carnegie's opulent Fifth Avenue mansion, and casually walked up to the front door. She spoke briefly with a staff member, spent just 20 minutes inside, and then returned to the carriage, her eyes heavy with fabricated emotion.
She swore the bewildered lawyer to absolute secrecy and whispered this totally theatrical line, "I am Andrew Carnegie's illegitimate daughter." And to sell the lie, she let him catch just a fleeting glimpse of a fake promissory note and a trust deed for a staggering $2 million resting right in her lap. Just like that, the bedrock of her scam was set.
Section 3. Anatomy of the Con. And this brilliantly illustrates her calculated genius in action. Step 1, she would walk into regional banks and deposit a sealed envelope, claiming it contained millions in securities that would unlock upon Carnegie's death. Step 2, she used the illusion of that collateral, along with the immense weight of the Carnegie name, to secure massive personal loans at exorbitant interest rates. And then, step 3, when a loan came due, she simply borrowed a larger sum from a different bank to pay off the first one. It was a classic, escalating Ponzi scheme.
So, why did this work so seamlessly? Well, it comes down to massive, systemic blind spots. The bankers assumed they were dealing with a wealthy, eccentric, and perhaps slightly careless heiress who absolutely must not be insulted. Because of the rigid Victorian sexism of the era, the all-male banking establishment simply couldn't fathom that a woman possessed the intellect and cold calculation to pull off a multi-million-dollar corporate fraud. Questioning Carnegie's supposed daughter was seen as a mortal insult. So guess what? No one dared to actually open the sealed envelope. They were completely blinded by their own greed and institutional arrogance.
But the reality of this unchecked greed was devastating. I mean, Cassie lived a life of unimaginable excess. She was buying diamond necklaces, filling 30 closets with Parisian gowns, even installing a gold-plated pipe organ in her Cleveland mansion. But the cost on the other end was grim. She completely obliterated the Citizens National Bank of Oberlin, Ohio. Its president funneled hundreds of thousands of dollars in bank reserves and even his own life savings straight into her hands. Ordinary depositors were dragged into total ruin just to fund her lifestyle.
Section 4. The House of Cards falls.
But you know, every empire built on a lie has an expiration date. The unraveling began in late 1904, sparked by a man who simply didn't care about elite etiquette. A Boston investor named Herbert B. Newton had loaned Cassie over $190,000. When he demanded repayment and she just casually dismissed him as a nuisance, Newton completely refused to back down. He took legal action, dragged her into the courts, and because of this lawsuit, those legendary sealed envelopes locked in the bank vaults were finally ordered to be torn open.
And when the clerks finally opened those envelopes, they didn't find millions in securities. No, they found crude, handwritten promissory notes with scribbled signatures that didn't even match Andrew Carnegie's actual handwriting. There was no hidden fortune. There was only paper, ink, and a staggering $2 million in debts. To put that into perspective, that's enough to equal tens of millions in today's money.
The consequences were swift and cascading. Cassie fled to New York with a money belt stuffed with $100,000 in cash, but she was tracked down and arrested at the Hotel Breslin. The 1905 trial was the legal spectacle of the century. Andrew Carnegie himself actually showed up and reportedly laughed out loud in court at the sloppy spelling and punctuation on the forged documents. The jury quickly found her guilty. She was handed a 14-year sentence and a $70,000 fine. Stripped entirely of her illusions, she died in the prison hospital just 2 years later at the age of 50.
Section 5. The Ultimate Lesson. Over a century later, the ghost of Cassie Chadwick still haunts the financial world because her story is an absolute masterclass in human psychology. Greed and arrogance are the ultimate blind spots. The bankers didn't fall for her cleverness because she was somehow supernatural. They fell for it because they desperately wanted to believe it. They were seduced by the promise of massive interest rates and crippled by an institutional hubris that told them power could never, ever look like a woman.
So I'll leave you with this stark thought to reflect on. Whenever someone promises you returns that defy reality, wrapped in a name too big to question, remember the empty vaults of Ohio. Behind every untouchable illusion, there is usually someone hoping you're just too proud to check the facts. What are the empty envelopes in your own life that you are simply too proud or perhaps too comfortable to open and verify? Really think about that. If this explainer made you question everything you thought you knew about power, deception, and unquestioned authority, make sure you join us next time as we continue to break down the real stories behind history's most compelling shadows. Stay vigilant.